Before we begin, take a moment to find yourself somewhere comfortable. Let your body settle into whatever support is beneath you, and allow the room around you to grow quiet. This is a story told at the pace of starlight, meant for those gentle hours when the mind is ready to wander and wonder without needing to arrive anywhere in particular. There's nothing you need to remember, nothing you need to hold on to. Just listen and let the thoughts move slowly, like distant lights drifting across a dark sky. Now imagine the familiar planets of our own solar system, the ones whose names we learned early on, orbiting calmly around a single warm sun. For a long time, those few worlds felt like the whole story. They were our reference points, our examples of what planets were supposed to be. Solid ground, predictable paths, a sense of order that made the universe feel tidy and understandable. When we looked up at the night sky, it seemed vast, yes, but also quiet, almost empty, as though our solar system might be a rare island of complexity floating in an otherwise simple cosmic sea. It's interesting to notice how comfortable that idea once felt. The stars were distant and beautiful, but remote, and it was easy to believe that whatever was happening out there had little to do with us. The darkness between them seemed like space in the truest sense of the word, an absence rather than a presence, and for centuries that view went mostly unchallenged. People wondered, of course. They imagined other worlds, other suns with their own families of planets, but imagination alone is a fragile thing. Without evidence, it drifts easily into myth or quiet speculation, pleasant to think about, but not something to build knowledge upon. As the years passed and instruments grew more precise, that comfortable picture began to soften. The night sky did not change in appearance, but our understanding of it did. Slowly, patiently, astronomers began to realize that the darkness between the stars was not empty at all. It was filled with motion, with gravity quietly shaping worlds that did not announce themselves with light or color. Planets, it turned out, were not rare exceptions. They were common companions to stars, forming naturally wherever the conditions allowed, gathering silently in orbits too faint to be seen directly. There's something calming about how gradual this realization was. No sudden revelation, no dramatic moment when the universe revealed all its secrets at once. Instead, a steady accumulation of quiet discoveries, each one nudging our understanding a little further outward. Thousands of planets, then tens of thousands, and the strong suspicion that there may be hundreds of billions more scattered throughout our galaxy alone. Worlds forming, evolving and changing, whether anyone was watching or not. And among all those distant planets, some are remarkably familiar. Rocky surfaces, gentle temperatures, orbits that unfold in slow, stable rhythms. But many others are nothing like the places we know. Some are so close to their stars that their surfaces glow with heat, while others drift so far away that starlight is only a faint memory. There are planets wrapped in thick atmospheres, planets with no solid surface at all, and planets that wander alone through interstellar darkness without a star to call their own. When we hear about these worlds, it can be tempting to feel a brief spark of excitement, a sense of the dramatic. But it can also be something softer than that, a quiet curiosity, a recognition that the universe is far more inventive than we ever needed it to be. It does not repeat the same pattern over and over. It explores possibilities, calmly and endlessly, without concern for whether those possibilities feel familiar or comfortable to us. As you listen, it's perfectly okay if your thoughts begin to drift. You don't need to picture every detail or follow every idea. These worlds have existed for millions or billions of years without our attention, and they will continue to exist whether we think about them clearly or only half remember them. The story does not demand alertness. It simply invites presence in whatever gentle form that takes. It's worth pausing on the thought that, not so long ago, we didn't even know these planets were there. The stars shone just as brightly, the constellations held their shapes, and yet entire planetary systems were hidden in plain sight. They were invisible not because they were rare, but because they were subtle. They did not glow. They did not announce themselves. They revealed their existence only through the smallest effects, a slight dimming of starlight, a faint gravitational tug, signals so delicate that they required extraordinary patience to notice. That patience mirrors something deeply human. So much of what matters in life unfolds quietly, understanding grows slowly. Perspective changes over time rather than all at once. The universe in this way feels less like a distant abstraction, and more like a reflection of processes we recognize within ourselves. Change without urgency, discovery without noise. If you imagine standing beneath a clear night sky now, far from city lights, you might notice how calm the stars appear. They seem steady, fixed, almost eternal. And yet around many of them, planets are moving in silent arcs, completing orbits that last days or years or centuries. Some are locked in intense heat, others in deep cold, and many somewhere in between. To the eye, the sky looks peaceful. Beneath that appearance, there is constant motion, shaped by gravity and time. There's no need to rush toward the more extreme places just yet. Simply knowing that they exist is enough for now, knowing that the universe is not limited to what we once assumed, that it holds far more variation than our early diagram suggested. Earth, comfortable and familiar as it feels beneath our feet, is not the standard by which all worlds are made. It is one expression among countless others, shaped by a particular balance of distance, chemistry, and history. And perhaps that thought can settle gently with you. The idea that there is no single template for how a world should be, that stability and extremity, calm and chaos, can all arise naturally from the same fundamental laws. The universe does not hurry. It allows every outcome to unfold at its own pace. As this chapter begins to draw to a close, let your attention rest wherever it wants to. You might still be picturing distant stars, or you might already be drifting towards sleep. Both are welcome. In the next part of our journey, we'll begin to look more closely at how astronomers learn to sense these hidden worlds, how they learn to see without seeing, listening for the faintest whispers of planets passing silently through the dark. And until then, there's no need to stay alert. The universe will wait, patiently, just as it always has. As the thought of those hidden worlds settles, it becomes easier to appreciate just how quiet their presence really is. Even now, as planets circle distant stars by the billions, they do so without light of their own, without announcing themselves, without any concern for whether they are noticed. They move through darkness with a kind of patience that feels almost instructive, reminding us that not everything meaningful needs to be seen directly to be real. For a long time, that invisibility was the greatest barrier to understanding. Stars blaze, planets do not. A star pours out light in every direction, while a planet reflects only a small portion of what reaches it, like a stone resting at the bottom of a deep lake, visible only when the surface is perfectly still. Trying to spot such a world beside its star is less like looking for something lost, and more like listening for a single, quiet note inside a much louder song. So astronomers learned to listen differently. Instead of asking what could be seen, they began asking what could be felt. Because even when a planet hides in darkness, it still has mass, and mass leaves an imprint. Gravity, after all, is not selective about attention. When a planet circles a star, it does not move alone. The star responds ever so slightly, shifting back and forth in a slow, careful dance. The motion is subtle enough to escape casual notice, but it is there all the same, steady and persistent. It's comforting to think of this method of discovery not as a hunt, but as a long watch. Night after night, year after year, the same stars observed with the same quiet focus until patterns begin to emerge. A gentle wobble, a rhythm that repeats. Light shifting by the smallest fraction, sliding toward blue and then toward red as the star moves toward us and away again. The effect is tiny, but it is consistent, and consistency is often where truth reveals itself. There's no rush in this process. The universe does not reward impatience. These measurements require time in the deepest sense, time measured not in moments of excitement, but in steady accumulation. It's a reminder that understanding often arrives not in flashes, but in slow clarifications, like dawn spreading across a landscape you've been watching all night. At the same time, another quiet technique was taking shape, one that relied not on motion, but on shadow. If a planet's orbit happens to line up just right, it will pass in front of its star from our point of view. When it does, the star dims slightly, almost imperceptibly, as though a moth had drifted across a distant lantern. The change is brief and small, but it carries meaning. It tells a story of size and timing, of a world crossing a beam of light far away. Imagine how delicate that signal is. A star, unimaginably large and bright, losing a fraction of its light for a few hours because a planet, itself too faint to see, has passed in front. And yet, with enough care, enough repetition, those faint dips form a pattern, a regular heartbeat, a confirmation that something solid and real is moving through the darkness on a predictable path. There is something deeply soothing about the patience behind this work. Space telescopes staring at the same patch of sky, not searching frantically, not scanning endlessly, but simply watching, allowing time to do what time does best. Patterns emerge when given enough space. Signals rise out of noise when nothing is forced. As these methods improved, the sky quietly filled with planets, not all at once, not dramatically, but steadily. Each detection adding to a growing sense that our solar system is not special in its structure, only familiar. The old idea of planets arranged neatly, widely spaced, moving in calm, circular orbits began to soften. Some planets were found rushing around their stars in a matter of days, so close that heat reshaped their very substance. Others followed elongated paths, swinging from warmth to cold and back again, like slow breaths stretched across years. It's okay if these details begin to blur as you listen. You don't need to hold on to them. The important feeling is not precision, but presence. The sense that knowledge itself can be gentle, that learning does not have to arrive as a flood of facts. It can arrive as a quiet widening of perspective, a subtle shift in how we imagine the universe around us. There is also something reassuring in the idea that planets can be known without ever being touched or seen directly. Their existence inferred through effects, through influence, through the way they shape their surroundings. It mirrors how we often come to understand things in our own lives, not through direct confrontation, but through patterns that reveal themselves over time, the way something changes the space around it, the way it leaves traces. As astronomers grew more confident in detecting planets, they began to look not just for presence, but for character. The timing of a shadow could reveal size. The strength of a gravitational tug could suggest mass. And in some cases, light passing through a planet's atmosphere during a transit carried subtle fingerprints, hints of what that atmosphere might be made of. Not images, not landscapes, but whispers of composition carried across vast distances. It's remarkable to think that photons leaving a star long before our own era can arrive now, altered just enough by a passing planet to tell us something about that world. Light as a messenger, patient and unhurried, carrying information across centuries of travel to arrive softly in a telescope's mirror. You might notice that even as our understanding deepens, the tone remains calm. There is no urgency in the universe's revelations. The planets are not going anywhere. They have been circling their stars for longer than we have been here, and they will continue long after our attention drifts elsewhere. If your thoughts begin to wander now, if sleep starts to feel closer than curiosity, that's perfectly fine. These discoveries do not demand vigilance. What matters is the sense that the universe can be known through stillness as much as through action, through watching rather than chasing, through waiting rather than forcing. And as we continue, that patience will become even more important, because the worlds revealed by these quiet methods are not always calm themselves. Some stretch heat, gravity, and motion to their limits, becoming places where stone melts, winds roar, and familiar boundaries begin to dissolve. But for now, let that thought rest gently. The knowledge that we learn to see the unseen by listening carefully, by trusting slow signals, by allowing time to speak. In the next chapter, we'll begin to step closer to those extreme worlds themselves, where heat reshapes rock and planets glow not with reflected light, but with the warmth of their own restless surfaces. Until then, there's no need to stay awake for the transition. The story will continue, whether you follow it consciously or let it drift softly into the background. As our understanding of distant planets grew quieter and more precise, something unexpected began to appear in the patterns of light and motion. Not calm, temperate worlds like the one we know, but places shaped by heat so intense that the very idea of solid ground starts to soften. These are not planets that simply feel warm or even dangerously hot. They are worlds where stone itself no longer behaves as stone, where rock glows, flows, and slowly shifts like a dark molten sea. It's helpful to ease into this idea slowly, because our instincts resist it at first. On Earth, rock feels permanent, mountains seem immovable, continents stable, landscapes defined by their resistance to change. Even volcanoes, dramatic as they are, feel like interruptions rather than the norm. But in the wider universe, permanence is less common than transformation. Heat, given enough time and intensity, changes everything. Some planets orbit their stars at distances so close that the energy they receive is overwhelming. There is no long night to cool the surface, no gentle balance between warmth and rest. Instead, the light pours down continuously, pressing into the ground until the upper layers of rock begin to melt. Not in isolated regions, not in scattered flows, but across entire hemispheres. These are the worlds often described as lava planets, though even that name feels almost too simple for what they are. Imagine a surface that never truly hardens. Vast plains of molten stone, glowing faintly under a relentless sky, moving not with urgency, but with patience. Lava here is not explosive or violent. It is slow, thick, and heavy, flowing as rock remembers how to behave when it is given enough heat. In some places, these molten seas may stretch for thousands of kilometers, unbroken by anything resembling land as we understand it. Many of these planets are locked in a permanent orientation to their stars, always showing the same face, much like the Moon does to Earth. One side exists in endless day, absorbing heat without relief. The other remains in perpetual night, colder and darker, a place where the glow fades and stone may slowly cool. Between them lies a narrow region of transition, neither fully molten nor fully solid, a twilight zone where temperatures soften just enough for matter to hesitate between states. There is something strangely calming about that image, a planet divided not by borders or oceans, but by temperature alone, day and night not as cycles, but as conditions. Time still passes, but the sky does not mark it. The star hangs fixed in one place, unmoving, while the planet beneath it reshapes itself in slow response. On these worlds, even familiar processes take on unfamiliar forms. Rock can evaporate, turning into vapor under extreme heat, rising into the atmosphere much the way water does on Earth. Carried by gentle but persistent winds, that vapor may drift toward cooler regions, where it condenses and settles again, falling not as rain, but as fine mineral droplets or grains. A rock cycle without water, evaporation, movement, condensation, all happening quietly over vast stretches of time. It's easy to forget how patient such processes are. Lava does not rush. It yields. It spreads slowly, responding to gravity and heat, reshaping the surface layer by layer. From a human perspective, these landscapes might seem frozen in place, but given enough years, enough centuries, they are in constant motion. Change is simply happening at a pace that does not demand attention. Some of these molten worlds are heated not only by their stars but from within. Gravitational forces can flex a planet's interior, kneading it gently but persistently, generating heat through friction. The result is a surface renewed again and again by internal energy, as though the planet itself were breathing warmth outward. Volcanoes here may never sleep, not because they erupt violently, but because the ground never fully cools. Despite the harshness of these environments, there is no sense of chaos in them. The physics is steady, the rules are simple, energy in, heat retained, matter responding accordingly. It's another reminder that extreme does not mean disorder. Often, it means clarity. Conditions push so far in one direction that their behavior becomes predictable in its own way. You don't need to picture these places sharply. Let them remain soft in your mind. Glowing surfaces, dark skies, slow movement. If your attention drifts now, if the images blur into warmth and shadow, that's perfectly natural. These planets do not demand to be visualized in detail. They exist whether we imagine them clearly or not. What matters is the feeling they leave behind. The realization that even stone, something we associate with solidity and endurance, is temporary under the right conditions. That planets, like everything else, are shaped by their circumstances, molded by energy and time. There is a quiet comfort in that thought, Nothing is fixed forever. Everything responds slowly, patiently, to what surrounds it. As we move forward, we'll begin to notice that heat does more than melt surfaces. It sets entire atmospheres in motion, driving winds that never rest and weather unlike anything we know. For now, though, let the image of glowing stone fade gently into the background. Let it cool in your thoughts, settling into darkness. The story will carry that warmth with it, easing us into the next chapter, where air itself begins to flow endlessly around distant worlds, guided by the same calm laws, unfolding without hurry. As the image of glowing stone slowly cools in the background of your thoughts, it becomes easier to notice something else moving through these distant worlds. Not the ground beneath them, but the air above. Heat does not remain still, and on planets where warmth is unevenly spread, where one side faces endless day and the other rests in darkness, the atmosphere responds in a way that feels both inevitable and strangely hypnotic. Air begins to flow, not in brief gusts or passing storms, but in vast, continuous rivers that wrap themselves around an entire planet. There is no pause between weather systems here, no quiet clearing after a storm. The motion is constant, driven by differences that never resolve. Warm air rises on the bright side, expands and moves outward, while cooler regions draw it in, setting the whole atmosphere into a slow, relentless circulation. It's helpful to think of this movement the way one might think of water in the deep ocean. Far below the surface, currents move steadily, guided by temperature and pressure, not by wind or waves. They don't hurry, and they don't stop. On these planets, the atmosphere behaves in much the same way. It flows because it must, responding calmly to conditions that have persisted for millions of years. On some worlds, these winds reach speeds that feel almost unreal when compared to anything on Earth. Faster than the strongest hurricanes, faster than sound itself, they sweep heat from the blazing day side toward the cooler night, smoothing extremes just enough to keep the planet in balance. Not comfortable balance perhaps, but stability nonetheless. The planet endures not by resisting these forces, but by allowing them to move freely. If you imagine standing beneath such a sky, there would be no stillness in the air, not turbulence in the familiar sense, not chaotic gusts, but a steady pressure, a sense of being inside something that is always in motion. The wind would not arrive and leave, it would simply be there, flowing endlessly, carrying warmth, carrying particles, carrying the quiet work of redistribution. In these atmospheres, even weather takes on unfamiliar forms. Where temperatures allow, clouds may gather, not made of water droplets or ice crystals, but of substances we associate with stone or metal. Tiny grains of mineral material can condense high above the surface, suspended in the moving air, forming hazy layers that stretch across the sky. As they drift into hotter regions, they evaporate again, disappearing without drama, only to reform elsewhere when conditions shift. It's a gentle cycle, despite its intensity. Matter-changing state, moving from one place to another, guided by temperature alone. The same basic processes that shape clouds on Earth are at work here, only the materials and the scales have changed. Heat rises, cooler regions receive, circulation continues. Some planets experience a kind of permanent twilight band, a narrow region between day and night where temperatures soften slightly. In these zones, the atmosphere may slow just enough to create subtle variations, layers of cloud and clear sky that drift along the boundary. It's not a place of comfort as we would define it, but it is a reminder that even on the most extreme worlds, transitions exist. Gradients rather than absolutes. There is no need to hold these details too firmly. Let them remain impressions rather than images. Air moving like water, heat flowing without rest, stone giving way to vapor and returning again. If your thoughts begin to loosen now, if the motion of these ideas carries you towards sleep, that is exactly as it should be. These planetary winds have been flowing long before we noticed them, and they will continue whether we pay attention or not. What feels most striking is not their power, but their patience. These are not sudden storms flaring up and fading away. They are systems that persist, driven by conditions that rarely change. Day remains day, night remains night. The atmosphere responds endlessly without urgency. There is something deeply soothing in that reliability, even when the environment itself is extreme. On worlds locked in this way, the hottest point is not always directly beneath the star. The winds carry heat along, shifting warmth eastward or westward, redistributing energy in ways that only careful observation can reveal. From far away, astronomers detect this not by watching clouds move, but by sensing slight changes in warmth as different regions rotate into view. Even here, knowledge arrives quietly, through patterns noticed over time. If you find yourself drifting now, if the idea of endless wind begins to blur into a single steady presence, let it. There is no narrative twist waiting, no sudden change in pace. The story unfolds the way these atmospheres do, gradually, with repetition and flow. Each idea passes into the next without needing a sharp edge to separate them, and beneath all this movement, the planets themselves continue their slow journeys around their stars, carrying their restless skies with them. Heat, air, stone, all bound together by gravity, all responding to the same simple laws. It's a reminder that complexity does not require chaos. It can arise from steady conditions maintained over long spans of time. As this chapter draws toward its own quiet resting place, let the sound of moving air fade into the background of your awareness. Ahead, the story will soften even further, turning toward worlds that absorb light rather than scatter it, and oceans that stretch without shorelines. There is no need to stay alert for that transition. Like the winds we've been imagining, the narrative will carry itself forward, calmly and patiently, whether you follow every word or drift gently away. As the sound of endless winds fades into the background, another kind of quiet begins to take its place. Not the quiet of still air, but the quiet of absorption. There are worlds where light does not scatter brightly across clouds or ice, where surfaces do not gleam or shimmer when a star rises above them. Instead, the light arrives and seems to disappear, drawn inward, transformed into warmth, leaving behind a darkness that feels deep rather than empty. On these planets, darkness is not a lack of energy, it is the result of keeping it. The starlight falls, is taken in, and rarely returns the way it came. Where brighter worlds announce themselves by reflection, these remain subdued, almost shy, revealing their presence only through subtle signs. A faint silhouette crossing a star, a quiet glow in wavelengths we cannot see with our eyes. It can be soothing to imagine such a place, a planet that does not dazzle, that does not compete with its star but simply receives what it is given. The surface might be made of dark stone, rock that drinks in light rather than bouncing it away. The atmosphere above could be clear of reflective clouds, allowing radiation to sink deeper and deeper before being absorbed. The result is a world that appears nearly black, yet may be intensely warm beneath that quiet exterior. Darkness here does not mean cold. In fact, it often means the opposite. When little light is reflected back into space, more energy remains behind, gently raising temperatures and altering how air moves above the surface. Winds still flow, clouds may still form, but the overall impression is muted, softened, as though everything has been wrapped in shadow. It is an extremity that does not roar. It settles. There is something calming about this idea, especially when set beside the glowing lava plains and racing atmospheres of earlier worlds. Extremes do not always announce themselves loudly. Sometimes they arrive as silence, as stillness, as a deepening of tone rather than a rise in volume. A reminder that intensity can exist without chaos. From these darkened surfaces, it is a small step to imagine worlds shaped almost entirely by water. Not water as we know it in scattered oceans and winding rivers, but water without edges, stretching from horizon to horizon in every direction. Planets where there are no continents, no mountain ranges rising above the surface, only a global ocean beneath a broad, patient sky. On such a world, the idea of shoreline simply does not exist. There is no place where land meets sea, because land never emerges. The water continues uninterrupted, rolling gently around the planet shaped by gravity and rotation, but never confined. Waves travel immense distances, gathering energy slowly, moving without obstacle. Storms rise and fade, leaving no lasting mark behind. Beneath the surface, the ocean grows deeper than anything familiar. Pressure increases steadily with depth, and at some point water itself changes. Not into steam or ice as we think of it, but into denser forms compressed into unfamiliar structures by the weight above. These layers settle quietly at the bottom of the ocean, forming boundaries we cannot cross, separating liquid water from the rocky interior below. It's a strange thought, a planet where water never touches stone, where the slow exchange between ocean and crust that shapes Earth's chemistry does not occur. Instead, the sea exists almost as a self-contained world, vast and deep, its movements guided by temperature and density rather than by coastlines. Currents flow gently through the darkness, redistributing heat, carrying nutrients, shaping a planetary rhythm that unfolds far beyond human timescales. The sky above such an ocean might feel softer than our own. With so much water feeding the atmosphere, clouds could gather easily, spreading light evenly, blurring sharp contrasts. Sunlight would arrive diffused, filtered through layers of vapour, creating an even glow rather than a harsh brilliance. Day and night might feel less distinct, marked more by subtle shifts in brightness than by dramatic changes. If your thoughts begin to drift here, that is entirely natural. Endless water invites that response. The mind recognises repetition, the absence of edges, and begins to let go. There is no landmark to fix attention on, no point of reference demanding focus, just motion, gentle and continuous. Life, if it exists on such a world, would not resemble what we know. Without shallow shores or exposed land, familiar pathways disappear. But the absence of familiarity does not imply absence of possibility. The universe has shown again and again that it is comfortable exploring alternatives. Chemistry finds new balances. Systems adapt quietly. What matters is not resemblance, but stability over time. Even without life, these water worlds hold a quiet beauty. A planet wrapped in its own ocean, turning slowly beneath the stars, absorbing light, holding warmth, moving patiently through space. There is no urgency in such a place. Nothing needs to arrive. Nothing needs to end. The processes continue because they can. As this chapter settles, let the darkness and the water blend together in your thoughts. Shadowed surfaces, endless seas, light arriving gently and being held. Ahead lies another kind of solitude, worlds that travel without stars at all, drifting through the galaxy in deep silence. There is no need to prepare for that transition. Like everything else in this story, it will arrive softly when the mind is ready, or pass by unnoticed if sleep has already begun to take hold. As the image of endless water fades into darkness, the story drifts even farther from warmth and light into a kind of quiet that feels almost absolute. There are worlds that do not circle a star at all. No sunrise ever reaches them. No familiar glow marks the passage of time. These planets move alone through interstellar space, carried gently by gravity, drifting between the stars like stones released into a vast, dark sea. At first, the idea can feel unsettling. A planet without a sun seems incomplete, as though something essential has been taken away. And yet, when you linger with the thought, it becomes softer. These worlds are not broken or abandoned. They are simply untethered, following paths shaped long ago, moving patiently through regions where starlight thins into silence. Such planets are born in systems much like our own. Early on, when stars are young and surrounded by swirling disks of gas and dust, worlds form close together, tugging gently, sometimes forcefully, on one another. Over long spans of time, those interactions can grow unstable. A close encounter, a subtle shift, and one planet may be pushed outward, gaining speed until the bond with its star loosens and finally slips away. What follows is not an explosion or a sudden departure, but a quiet release. Once free, the planet continues on, carrying with it whatever heat remains from its formation, and whatever warmth its interior can still produce. Deep below the surface, rock may stay warm for millions or even billions of years, slowly releasing energy upward. In that sense, these worlds are not entirely cold. They glow faintly from within, holding on to the last traces of their beginnings. In the darkness between stars, time stretches even further. There is no day or night to mark rhythm, no seasons to divide experience. Motion exists only in the slow turning of the planet itself and its long journey through the galaxy. Space here is not empty in the way we imagine emptiness. It is filled with quiet structure, with gravity shaping paths that unfold over immense distances. It's possible that some of these wandering planets carry thick atmospheres, insulating them against the cold. Beneath layers of gas and cloud, temperatures could remain surprisingly stable, especially deep underground. In such hidden places, warmth and pressure might persist long after the surface has grown dark. Even water, locked beneath ice, could remain liquid far below, warmed by internal heat, moving slowly through unseen channels. There is something profoundly calming about that possibility. Life, if it were to exist in such a place, would not depend on sunlight or surface conditions. It would rely instead on patience, on slow chemistry, on gradients of warmth and cold that change almost imperceptibly. Even if no life ever takes hold, the planet itself remains a testament to endurance, a world continuing simply because the laws of physics allow it to. From far away, these planets reveal themselves only briefly, a momentary brightening of a distant star as gravity bends its light, a faint infrared glow detected by sensitive instruments. Their presence is subtle, easy to miss, much like a thought passing through the mind just before sleep. They are there, but they do not insist on being noticed. As you listen, you may find that this idea settles more deeply than the others. A planet alone, unlit, moving quietly through darkness, not rushing, not lost, just following a path laid down long ago. There is a gentle comfort in that image, especially at the end of a long day. The sense that movement does not require direction, that existence does not require illumination to be valid. When we step back and consider all the worlds we've drifted past, the molten surfaces, the racing winds, the absorbing darkness, the endless oceans, and now these solitary travellers, a pattern begins to emerge. The universe does not favour one condition over another. It allows heat and cold, light and shadow, attachment and release, all to exist side by side. Extremes are not errors, they are expressions. And within that vast range of possibility, our own world finds its place quietly, without needing to be central or exceptional. Earth is not the measure of all planets, but one gentle variation among many, a balance of water and stone, warmth and darkness, motion and rest. Knowing this does not diminish its value. If anything, it deepens it. If sleep has already begun to pull at you, let it. These wandering planets will continue their journeys without witnesses just as they always have. There is nothing more you need to follow, nothing more you need to imagine clearly. The universe is patient. It does not mind if you close your eyes before the story ends. And so, as this final chapter comes to rest, let the darkness feel spacious rather than empty. Let the idea of slow motion through a quiet galaxy ease your thoughts. Somewhere far beyond sight, worlds drift gently on, carrying stone, water and warmth through the night. And here for now it's enough to simply rest, knowing that even in the deepest darkness, nothing is truly alone. As the last images drift away, there is no need to hold on to anything you've heard. The worlds we've passed tonight do not ask to be remembered in detail. They are content simply to exist, moving through darkness and light, heat and cold, patience and time, whether anyone is watching or not. Perhaps that is the quiet lesson they leave behind. Across the galaxy, planets glow, absorb, melt, freeze, wander, and endure. Some circle their stars closely, shaped by fire and motion. Others rest beneath endless oceans, or travel alone through the dark, untethered and silent. None of them hurry, none of them ask where they're going. They follow paths written long before curiosity ever reached them. And here, on this small and familiar world, you've been listening, breathing, allowing your thoughts to slow, maybe soften, maybe fade a little at the edges. That's perfectly okay. Stories like this are not meant to be held tightly. They are meant to pass through, like starlight, or like a tide that arrives and recedes without asking permission. If sleep is close now, let it come. You don't need to stay awake for endings. The universe does not mind unfinished thoughts. It has all the time it needs, and if you're still drifting somewhere between listening and resting, just notice how quiet everything feels. The same quiet that exists between stars, the same quiet that fills deep oceans and long journeys through space. A quiet that isn't empty, but full of motion unfolding slowly, far beyond urgency. It's comforting to remember that nothing truly ends out there. Planets change, systems shift, stars age and fade, but the story continues without effort. No pressure, no rush, just an endless unfolding. This calm little corner of curiosity exists for moments like this, for late nights, for tired minds, for anyone who wants to feel small in a gentle way rather than an overwhelming one. If this journey brought you a sense of peace, or even just a few quieter minutes at the end of your day, you're warmly invited to support it. A simple like, a share, or a subscription helps this space reach others who may be looking for the same slow, soothing kind of wonder. There's no obligation, only an open invitation. But for now there is nothing left to do. No more places to travel, no more worlds to imagine clearly, no more thoughts that need resolving. Just rest. Somewhere out there, planets drift through darkness without fear, and here you can do the same. Good night, sleep gently, and we'll wander again when you're ready.